Bismillah. Hi, I'm Ali, an academic researcher and host of this podcast, ThinkCraft, where we talk about education and educational policy. And this will be my second attempt at a solo episode where I do something a little bit more headline level news dissection, news commentary. Versus what I do with guests, where I really look to see their perspective of a much more nuanced issue. Issue today is not very nuanced. Um, it's almost cartoonish, but it's quite serious. And uh, I hope today that by covering the Trump administration's reshaping of federal educational policy uh, in line with the Supreme Court's approval, which we haven't seen before, to go forward with dismantling the Department of Education as a goal via firing as many people as possible and cutting as much money as possible in the Department of Education. I hope that I could relay this story of mass layoffs and department dismantling, reallocating in a way that's not getting covered in mainstream news outlets. So the first thing here that I wanted to highlight is that if we throw up image 1A, this was on January 14th, the earliest that I could find news coverage of the Supreme Court clearing the way for Trump's cuts to the education department. This is a New York Times article that you can read or listen, but basically the Supreme Court has greenlit the move to reduce staff and possibly dismantle altogether forever. What does this mean exactly? Well, one, the Supreme Court is not just talking cuts; they're talking an entire agency. Please comment if if you think differently. I don't know if we've ever created a department and then cut it completely. Two, this is handing its core functions to others, like the Department of Justice or the Treasury. And, just to give you an idea here, the Department of Education has oversight of everything from federal student aid to civil rights enforcements in schools, right? So justice for students who are discriminated against on the basis of their race, accommodations for disabled students, any semblance of equity academically or otherwise. Title IX, Title X, basically the oversight of the entire structure of what holds schools accountable. Again, that means K-12, keeping children safe, as well as post-secondary education, colleges, keeping people employed, keeping people curious and knowledgeable. This is a way for the Overton window to be pushed, and if they can get away with this, and they're quite close with the Supreme Court's approval to move forward with these mass layoffs, they can move forward with other ideas that they proposed in Project 2025 to basically cut all the three-lettered, as they've said, the three-lettered organizations like the CIA, the FDA, the FBI. They want to privatize everything. It's much more libertarian than it is conservative. And really the mass layoffs, the department dismantling, it came about within hours of this Supreme Court ruling, which I find quite jarring. The department sent notices to employees indicating immediate resumption of plans to shrink their department. This aligns with the conservative direction that Project 2025 and some of the more multimedia figures in the MAGA movement as the president was campaigning for this second term. This aligns with that ideological direction to completely dismantle the departments. Vivek Ramaswamy, I believe is how you pronounce his name. That was a GOP candidate who wanted to dismantle many departments. And he is one of the people I think of when I think of folks who are cheering on this dismantling. Now, there's a dual approach to this department function reallocation, right? So, on one side, they're gutting traditional functions. So, the administration is hobbling the department's ability to perform basic functions such as handling discrimination cases in school, managing loan disbursement and aid disbursement, providing funding to low-income schools and students with disabilities, conducting educational research. So, like keeping a tab on whether or not students are reading better or worse at all to any degree. So while they're gutting those functions, they're also weaponizing other functions. So simultaneously using the department aggressively for ideological purposes. And this is something that you'll see more in higher ed. For example, they're leading and I quote, anti-Semitism jihad against elite universities. If you go to insidehighered.com, they've been covering this quite well. But this is a famous example is attacking Harvard's accreditation by allowing students, grown students at Harvard, to protest in defense of Palestine or against the actions of Israel, whichever way you see it. Quite surprisingly, the government, the administration that says they're against DEI and identity politics is focusing a lot on identity here, leading the anti-Semitism jihad, which is the way they're using the word jihad is struggle or war or effort against elite universities. So if they can go after Harvard's accreditation, imagine community colleges and trade schools and what have you. And the last point I wanted to make, because this will be a shorter episode here, is that this systematic dismantling plan was predicted and echoed in Project 2025, which includes a systematic process for disassembling the Department of Education. We have much more details in that plan versus this court injunction. I'll leave links in the description of what we have now and what we had then. But the Project 2025 effort it featured a plan which involved off-ramping core functions to other departments. And that's how we know they would be moving loans, student loans, to the Treasury, which handles all types of economic activity, inflation, global trade, you name it. They'd be shifting legal issues, so that could be student discrimination. That can also be abuse of power. Keep in mind that the power dynamic for graduate students can be really dicey. Essentially, PhD students will do whatever they can to get their foot in the door because that makes their dissertation all that more wild. They could get their research in the media. Certain professors at certain grad schools are like rock stars. And you can imagine how those power dynamics can be abusive in the worker sense of the word, the labor violation sense of the word, sexual assault sense of the word. So they're going to be shifting those legal issues to the Department of Justice, which if you type in Trump Department of Justice on Google, you'll find a lot of different conflicting efforts by the Department of Justice that involve Donald Trump. And I'll leave it at that there. Definitely not a bipartisan or education focused or non-involved clean slate judge of how to how to judge this administration's systematic dismantling of the Department of Education. And finally, it is sending more power back to the states. I've also seen conservatives talk about sending more power back to parents. I'm not exactly sure what this means in the commentary. That's basically a bunch of X threads at the moment. Again, this is breaking news, but in the Project 2025 way, there's just this illusion, this very Peter Thiel-like idea that getting rid of the public sector is giving power back to the states. Well, what does the state do with that power? Companies will seem to solve that problem. And so I think they're hoping for more private schools, if they're hoping for schools at all, but it would be up to the states. How it's funded would be up to the Treasury. Student administration and educational law would be the Department of Justice. And this approach represents a significant shift in federal educational policy. It can't be understated, with potential impacts on funding for students with disabilities, students with Pell Grants, most common type of student loan, financial aid rather, and other federally administered educational programs. We already saw AmeriCorps is gone or perhaps coming back, but AmeriCorps was cut. Nutrition programs for K through 12 schools, a bunch of research and graduate school funding, National Science Foundation funding grants were cut. So this is a shorter episode, guys, but I just wanted to cover this in a way that maybe you are not getting in more by bipartisan focused news outlets. And if anyone would be interested in sharing in the comments their thoughts on this, is this a surprise? What do you think will happen to these federal programs, like scholarship programs or any other programs that support low-income students? Who will carry out enforcement for civil rights violation in schools? Again, the Department of Justice, what does that mean? These are much broad. The Department of Justice handles nationwide things. Schools are district-wide events. And how are states preparing for this, if at all? And this is an opportunity for you to comment on behalf of your state if you know your representatives are responding in a certain way. It's unclear right now. I'm going to be speaking to somebody who may have a better idea what's going on behind the scenes. But till next time, I'm Ollie. This is ThinkCraft. Keep asking questions, keep following the money, and watching the people behind the policies. Let me know if you'd like me to cover any other topics in education or educational policy. You'll find us on all social media platforms and distribute DSPs where you can listen to podcasts. We will be there. Finally, got a small team forming together, and I'm really excited to bring you guys more multimedia projects, research, and publications of various sorts. So thank you. Subscribe on YouTube, Substack, and follow me on LinkedIn. Links below. Thank you.